Alright, let's try this out. Now we're planning on reading, let's see how far we get, but technology as enabler of the automation of work. Right, current societal challenges for a future perspective of work. From Brazil, we got Bettina Johanna Krings, Antonio B. Moniz, and Philip Frey. Alright, the abstract. Due to the innovative possibilities of digital technologies, the issue of increasing automation is once again on the agenda. And not only in the industry, but also in other branches and sectors of contemporary societies. Although public and scientific discussion about automation seems to raise relevant questions of the old debate, such as replacements of human labor by introducing new technologies, the authors focus here on the new contextual quality of these questions. The debate should rethink the relationship between technology and work with regards to quantitative and qualitative changes in work. In this article, our example will be the introduction of automation in industry, which has been reflected in the widely recognized study by Frey and Osborne in 2013. Oh, I haven't read that study. That's too bad. Hopefully there will be a short summary. Yeah. They estimated the expected impacts of future computerization on US labor market outcomes as very high, specifically regarding to the number of jobs at risk. Surprisingly, this study was the starting point of an intensive international debate on the impact of technologies on the future of work and the role of technological change in working environments. Yeah, I've heard this before, and I've had these discussions as well, right? I've used these arguments as arguments for...
The sounds were a real horror show. It's very realistic. You could even get the heavy breathing and panting of the tall-chopping mouth chicks.
Arguments for universal basic income, yeah. Thus, according to the authors, old questions remain important, but they should be reinterpreted for new social demands and expectations for future models of work. All right. Keywords: automation, technical unemployment, yeah. Transformation of work, new models of work. Right, so they focus on work. That is actually interesting. Yeah, I've focused, right, when I've thought about this and looked at this, I just want to remove work, right? That's my focus. Just less work, more hobbies, or more stuff to do. Yeah. Spend more time painting and whatnot. Alright. And then we got the... Wait, is this Spanish or Portuguese? I don't know the difference. Alright, introduction, transformation of work by digital technologies. Actually, I don't remember. Brazil language, right? It was Brazil, I think, and they speak Portuguese. Yeah. That's what I thought. Okay. Introduction, transformation of work by digital technologies. All right, we're talking about digital here. We're talking about computers, not mechanical technologies. We're talking about digital here. So we're talking about doing mathematics and what? Right, digital technologies, applications such as new robotic systems and new forms of artificial intelligence in the industry are usually considered as the third wave of a technological revolution that is going to fundamentally change highly industrialized societies. Alright, we're talking robotics and AI. The third wave? Sure. Wait, the first wave was what we call the Industrial Revolution, right? The second wave is probably the coming of computers by themselves, right? Computers and the internet and whatnot. Right. According to their proponents, these technologies will not only change the socio-technical environment in traditional sectors like agriculture, production, and the service sectors. All right. Proponents of technological and advancements. I mean, they come with a lot of good stuff, right? I think it's not, I'm not even sure we're talking about being proponents or being against the thing. I think it's so useful that it's gonna keep happening. As long as civilization does not collapse, we will keep doing this. That's my belief. Right? Since we started innovating with technology, we have not stopped. We just want more and more and more and more and more. So I would say that there will be a lot of change for good and for bad. Right, there are future visions that these advanced technological approaches should also be applied in various societal sectors, such as medicine, healthcare, or even education. Also, right. We're looking at medicine, healthcare, education, agriculture, production, and the service sector. Aren't we talking about the service sector? Right? Isn't this the service sector? And, well, medicine is production. I guess there is a perceived disconnect, right? Some things we pay taxes for, other things we pay with consumeristic societal structures. Yeah. Of course, if we can make medicine better and solve more problems. Same with education, right? We kind of want in education, right? All the schools want computers for their kids, right? Reading on Wikipedia and whatnot. Right here, robots and AI are not only envisioned to fundamentally change the modes of productivity, but also the modes of communication, interrelation, and the creation of human-machine interaction. Yeah, that has already happened, and it keeps on happening. Yeah. I'm looking for, well, that probably won't happen in my day, but plugging into the Matrix, that would have been amazing. Right, some authors even refers to these advances as robot society. Okay, a concept that describes the increasing importance of robots in modern working and living conditions. Yeah, like washing machines, dishwashers, Roombas, whatnot, yeah. What seems interesting here is the major role of technologies as an interdisciplinary approach to complex dimensions of societies. Interdisciplinary approach? Yeah, like technology is ending up everywhere in every dimension of society, right? I guess not for jogging, lifting weights. No, we do We build machines and better digital designed shoes, right? To improve how this works. Digital technologies are blurring the boundaries between private and public life, between real and artificial life, but also between work and individual life. Right, private and public life. Blurring the boundaries. I'm not sure, right? I suppose you publish, like a lot of people do publish their entire life, right? On Facebook and whatnot. Yeah. I suppose that happens. Between real and artificial life, I don't understand what that means. What is artificial life? Is it like having a pacemaker? Is that artificial life? Is it having... I don't know people that has lost legs and they have now implants. Is that artificial life? Or are they talking about life on Facebook? Because that is part of real life, right? It's the new part of real life. There's no lines. It's just an addition to real life. There's no line to blur there. But also between work and individual life. Yeah, especially this last year, right? A lot of people are working from home. I guess that's what we mean, right? Private time and work time, right? I do what I want at some times of, well, I don't know. That line is I would say it's a fairly recent invention, isn't it? Right? If you go back 200 years, wasn't the blacksmith that was work and individual life, right? Isn't that like... Isn't the last name Smith for a reason, right? If you think of that. Or Thatcher, or... right? A lot of surnames are based on stuff you did for work. But I guess we did separate the two with more hard line recently, but now it starts blending together again since you're always accessible. I'm not sure. Maybe. That'll probably explain it the further we go along. Therefore, it has been assumed for decades that digital technologies will completely transform societies and their different functional spheres. I mean, it already has, and it continues to do so. In sociology, these technology-based transformations processes are increasingly analyzed and evaluated. Right? Taking into account the impact of these emerging technologies with regards to automation processes, new societal, political, and cultural framework conditions seem to continuously change the working environments. Yep. This implies significant changes in human-machine interfaces in many branches and sectors, which have been observed and debated for 2 decades. All right, yeah. I mean, if you go back 100 years, right? You chop down the trees and then you form them into planks yourself, but that looks completely different now. And it's gonna look completely different in the future than it is now, right? You started driving actual machines using chainsaws and whatnot to cut stuff down. Now we just put them into a machine, and in the future we might just sit in front of the computer and control it from the computer, like that's the human controlled drone. And the next step again is just to program the machine. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of programming work in the future. If civilization keeps going in this direction, that's my guess anyway. Here the old question whether new technological applications are substituting human labor is guiding these debates. A lot of this, right? Yeah, substituting human labor. Definitely, right? Why is that a debate? Is that in question? At the same time, these debates also focus on future scenarios of digital working and living environments. From a global perspective, the quality of human work should become more sustainable as the social and ecological issues. Wait. The quality of human work should become more sustainable to social and ecological issues. Yeah, the quality is gonna increase, quality of work. That's has happened, and like both things, right? At some places it has increased, and in other places it has decreased. Thus, ethical and social discourses considering these issues seem to be more and more relevant in scientific and public discourses in order to reflect on future models of work. Yes, I agree. I totally agree. And from where I come from is that a lot of work that exists today is, from my opinion, from where I'm standing, they do not benefit society, right? There's so much work being done that it's just, some of it is actually even detrimental to society. A lot of that work. Like all the politicians, and I did a little bit of research on that myself. In Sweden, I was just looking through the last 20 years of argumentation. I made a little program where I did word count statistics, right? And just looking for unemployment and increasing work and stuff like that. And all the politicians in Sweden, they have a little different attitudes, but they all seem unemployment as something bad and creating more jobs as something positive. In Sweden, the tendency that I saw, right, it wasn't a lot of statistics, but what I saw was that the left cared more about the unemployed and them not right, they having a bad time out of it, while the more right-wing parties cared more about creating more work for creating more stuff in society, right? More work means more quality of life in their minds. And I reject these things, right? Because work doesn't necessarily mean increased quality of life for the individual that is working or for society as a whole, right? A lot of jobs suck and a lot of people hate those jobs, right? It's just about the money for the individual. And my favorite example for detrimental for society is all the ad business, right? Ads everywhere, right? You just watch a movie and there is this ad break, just trying to manipulate you to buy stuff that maybe is not the best for you. Like Coca-Cola, how much Coca-Cola should you drink? Rot your teeth and get fat? Right? Right? What benefit is it to you as an individual, and thus for society, to see a Coca-Cola commercial every day? How does that improve your life? Let's say you spend 1 minute every day just watching Coca-Cola commercials. How is that an improvement on your life? It is specifically designed to manipulate you to just drink more Coca-Cola. But it's like, if you, I would say, right, you can make that choice by yourself. You know what Coca-Cola is. You know that already. I mean, it's no new information for you. So, I don't know. Like, that whole sector has been grown way too big, right? There's a lot of work being done that doesn't really improve anything for anyone. Alright. As sketched above, the current working environments in various sectors are changing, which also has an impact on societal transformation. These changes take place both on the organizational and individual level of working structures and in employment patterns. Alright, changes all over the place, As the historical view on the mechanization of work shows, various forms of mechanization have never been recognized as endogenous variables by scientific perspectives. Endogenous? What's that mean? Originating internally, originating or produced within Right. Wait, they have never done the science on this? Wait. Conversely, the mechanization of labor has always been considered a social historical development where economic interests, political power relations, as well as cultural values where it seems like they missed finishing this quote. Where what? Where these things changed? Or is it... I mean... Right, should be taken into account. Alright, those things should be taken into account. Okay, that was a little bit weird structure, but I get that. Thus, especially from the perspective of industrial sociology, the effects of technology on labor have always been critically analyzed as saving labor, increase of effectivity, and control of processes. Alright, Later during the 80s, the issue of qualification in both senses, upskilling and downskilling processes, has become relevant for analysis, not only in sociology but also in economics and engineering sciences regarding the introduction of new technological innovations. Although the focus on the relationship between technology and work still greatly strengthened work at the operational level, empirical evidence since the 80s has increasingly shown that there have been many new organizational models of work which cannot be reduced to linear approaches to the relationship between technology and work. Linear approaches? What do they mean with greatly strengthened? Furthermore, the increase in service work during the 70s and 80s significantly opened up the contingency of work models in industrialized societies and raised questions as to a new quality of labor. The widespread application of digital technologies as a key technology, and the establishment of the World Wide Web as a new space of information enabled the transformation of work in a global knowledge economy. This transformation has had and still has tremendous impacts on the restructuring of work at the organizational and individual level, both nationally and internally, with multiple effects on national and international labor markets. Yeah. definitely that happens. Oh, I just noticed I'm a little bit in the way. Can I be less in the way over here? I can, yeah, so let's be over here. Just moved out of the way. Alright. This seems to be particularly true for the analysis of digitalization processes and the ongoing introduction of robotics in different fields of work. Yeah, however, the impact of these technologies shows that the strong interrelation between technologies and the traditional concepts of organizational change can only be partly reconstructed. What does that mean, partly reconstructed? In addition to the issues mentioned above, saving of labor, increase of effectivity, control of processes, qualification, technical components in the working structure are increasingly considered as components that provide quantitative and qualitative changes to the whole working structure. Alright, sure, yeah. It feels like so far we're just saying over and over and over again that technology has changed how we work. It's lacking on details and examples, right? It's saying a lot of vague stuff, right? Processes, control of processes change, qualifications needs change. Well, I guess these are not super vague, right? Less labor for the individual, for the people, and increase in effectivity. Yeah, the machines do stuff more efficient than us. These changes are manifold and differ strongly between sectors and branches. Sure, alright. It's just a lot of references to build a, I guess create a baseline from where to go, and that's usually what you do with an introduction, right? They feel kind of... It doesn't feel like new information for me, but... Right, we're building a baseline here. Right, this paper emphasizes the idea of rethinking the relationship between technological development and working environments with regards to new shifts in automation processes in different sectors. It is not a recent debate, but it's gaining new strength through several new empirical studies, new hypotheses based on the economic modeling of the labor market, and new sociological questions. Alright, so what is the rethink? How should we think differently? Alright. Interestingly, the debate can be reframed with the discussion of the 70s about automation as a potential cause of de-skilling and reducing quality of employment. Okay. That's not a new though, right? This is an old thing, alright. Later in the 80s and the 90s, the discussion focused on the influence of technology on employment volumes and qualification needs. As a result, technological unemployment and skill shortages became policy issues with significant resonance in the public debate. Yeah, right. In the public debate, and that kind of makes sense from the 80s and the 90s and whatnot, right? A lot of unemployment. Because, yeah. That's actually a scaling I hadn't thought of, right? Technological advancement, what it has done, it has increased low-skill work, right? Just being a cog in the machine, right? You just take one thing, move it from point A to point B, right? Working on the... What's that? Right? Yeah, just being one cog in the machine. That's low-skilled work. But it's also lessening, right? The amount of work, because the machine does most of the work and you just put stuff into the machine, right? So there's a lot of low-skill work. I take a website, for example. That was high skill to create a website. In the past, right? You need to learn HTML, CSS, and right. There's still uses for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? But nowadays, you can just go to one of those websites that create websites, and you can just pick and choose and just put in your information, and that's a website. Like that, it's super easy to create. So that's increasing the low-skilled work, right? And it takes a lot less labor, right? But you have these people that create the websites that create websites. That is high-skill work. Right, so, and that gap is kind of growing, isn't it? And like what I'm hoping for with automation now is, it's raising the skill levels of doing stuff, right? That is happening for sure. You need higher and higher skill because programming is way more difficult than, like, programming a car to drive is way more difficult than driving an actual car, for example. And the hope is kind of that automation removes the low-skilled jobs, like, altogether. Well, not altogether, I don't know about that, but... Right. That's kind of the goal, right? That all that low-skill stuff can be done by a machine. And that is my hope anyway, because that shit's boring. Well, maybe not for everyone, but right, if you enjoy that type of menial activity, like a meditative practice or whatnot, you can do that by yourself, right? You don't have to be a required... But you can enjoy that type of activity without society requiring it from you, right? That's individuality. You get personal time to do that. If you want to, alright. More recently, the application of robotic systems in industrial work introduced new forms of automation that are presented in the social sciences discussion. Right, a lot of people are talking about it. What are they saying? According to the study by Frey and Osborne, these specific forms of automation have led to critical debates about job losses and the changing character of work. Yeah. For me, I see these words and I see something good. Job losses, yes. Get rid of them. Get rid of all the jobs. Right. Following sociological theories of work, the focus of our analysis of technological change is not only on the shifts of organization, but also on the shifts of qualifications and skills. Yeah, that good point, yeah. In the last decades, many empirical studies based on actual cases and labor market data have provided new perspectives and elements for modeling. However, due to the second wave mutation of technological and socio-structural changes, the ubiquitous use of digital technologies offers a wide variety of HMI in all sectors. Not only human-computer interaction, HCI. Wait, what was HMI? Human-machine interaction. Human-computer interaction? Yeah, that's gotta be it. Yet, human-machine interaction is rarely empirically examined regarding the shifts of work processes in specific working environments, such as the manufacturing industry. Empirically examined. I wonder what they're talking about. How should you empirically examine this stuff? I guess it's a good idea, right? There's a lot of us. I am probably making a lot of assumptions about manufacturing and how that works. I mean, I've worked at a factory, like a couple of factories before, so I've done a lot of stuff. But that's just my anecdotal stuff, yeah. Right, such as the manufacturing industry, administration, care, or even the management of work. Okay, the configurations of the future of work must be discussed in more detail, but those configurations often do not reflect issues of labor regulation, issues of transitions, or even issues of sustainable work models. Moreover, the interrelation between technological progress, production forces, and socioeconomic relations, modes of productions, is rarely considered when analyzing the application of new information-based technologies. Wait, how is technological progress production forces? Alright, we gain more production force strength, right? Yeah, that's technological progress. Production forces. We get stronger in our production stuff. Socioeconomic relations are modes of production. Alright, that's specifically what we're talking about, right? Modes of production. That ends up as a socio-economical relation, definitely, yeah. It is rarely considered when analyzing the application of new information-based technologies.
Maybe he did something right, something everybody else in history had done wrong.
What, like eat the food, drink the water, and breathe the air?
Deep breaths. Alright, I am very curious about this, but I agree that in the public debate, this has not, the meta discussion about how should work look, right? It's, like I said, right, all the politicians have the same idea, just more jobs. That's what the politicians talk about, right? They're not considering less jobs, for example, right? Or if we should change this stuff around somehow. Right. In the next section, we will investigate the impact of Frey's and Osborne's study on scientific and public debates in order to qualitatively analyze the new forms of automation and employment. Right. We will then discuss new questions arising from these debates with regards to former debates on automation processes. Finally, we will reflect on the relationship between technological progress and work and formulate new research questions that should be more strongly embedded in a broad and critical societal debate on future employment models. This kind of critique will be the premise of our reflections on future models of work based on technological progress. Alright, so Frey and Osborne, recent debate on automation. What is the recent debate? And what is the modern societal debate? I'm out of the loop, I kind of feel. Right, as mentioned by Sonia, Guimares on 2019 on the recent changes in the relation between technological developments and employment structure, right? And then we get a quote from Sonia here. Some analysts predict that the labor market will be divided into two poles. On the high-end, knowledge-intensive sectors, at the opposite end, activities that can be characterized by low productivity. Low productivity? Oh, are we talking the service sector here? Low productivity? Like I'm in a restaurant? Maybe. This scenario also includes a significant reduction of occupations at the middle level and concomitant growth of societal divisions. Oh, right, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, right? Right. If you take the division like the communists do, right? the poorest and everybody else. And we see that happening, right? Oh, right. Low productivity, that's people that don't have a lot of jobs as well, right? You're unemployed most of the time, and then you work a little bit, and then you're unemployed for... that's what we find at the lowest classes, right? While the middle class gets richer and richer, getting more and more educated into more higher knowledge intensive sectors. I can see that. Other scholars ponder an increase in the mobility of the labor force in a globalized scenario in which workers can be recruited from wherever they are found. Yeah, we've seen an increase in that as well, yeah? In this regard, the globalization would expand its effects on the labor market. Yeah, right. I've worked abroad. And I can look for work, right? I can sit here and I can find jobs abroad, right? And I get the plane ticket, everything is just worked out. That is definitely possible, yeah. These new trends are also producing... Right, I remember I moved to Malta, and I lived there for about half a year. Yeah, half a year. And I worked at a Swedish customer service place, right? I was answering the phone from Sweden in Malta. Because it's cheaper taxes and lower... Like, everything is cheaper, right? The offices, and you can pay a little bit lower wage. Right? You can... Right? It's way and laxer laws and whatnot, right? It's just cheaper. And of course, recruiting people becomes easy because, oh, Malta, that sounds exotic and fun and hot and like a good time. And it was okay, yeah. People that wants to leave Sweden and go to a hot place and just have a good time. Alright, these new trends are also producing an intense debate in the sociological communities. However, they have their background in economic labor market studies. The recent debate on automation has been mainly inspired and framed by the seminal and famous study, The Future of Employment, How Susceptible Are Jobs to Computerization, by Oxford University researchers Carl Benedict Frey and Michael A. Osborne, 2013. Right, I wonder if this is something that I want to read in the future. Oh, wow. It's not. Science Direct. They will probably summarize it, so I probably don't need to read it. They identified the automation of tasks requiring a high level of perceptual skills and dexterity. Yep. Tasks requiring creative intelligence and tasks requiring social intelligence as engineering bottlenecks. Yeah. All right. There is high skill mechanical stuff as well that has to be done. I was just thinking about... Right, high knowledge. They were talking about knowledge. I was just thinking about like intellectual, academical knowledge, like programming. But all right, there also takes like driving a car. Right, that takes perception and dexterity. Right. So there's a lot of these things, specialized things that will be a bottleneck, yeah. Creative intelligence, that's a bottleneck. Social intelligence, definitely a big bottleneck, yeah. So those are the jobs of the future, yeah. So Yeah, exactly. Right. Having derived a number of engineering bottlenecks from literature review and a workshop with machine learning researchers, they assumed that beyond these bottlenecks, it is largely already technologically possible to automate almost any task. It is possible. It's not cost efficient yet. That is usually what happens within technology, right? First we'll learn how to do something, then we'll learn to do, humanity, or technology wise, we'll learn how to do something, and then we'll learn how to make it cost efficient. Yeah. So at the moment it's an economical value judgment, right? Can you buy a machine to do the machine or to do the work of a human, and will that become cheaper, right? The upfront cost, right? How long will the machine last, and will the investment be, right? Yeah. Right. Acemoglu and Restrepo aim towards the same direction when they mention that advances in robotics, for example, do not make capital or labor more productive, but expand the set of tasks that can be produced by capital. Wait, it doesn't make it more productive? Depends on what you mean with productive, right? If something that took 10 people to do yesterday takes 1 person to do today, is that more productive? Probably not. Just expands the set of tasks, right? Well, since you then can use this 1 person, right? You can use 10 other people. It's higher skill, higher dexterity to do the new job. But if you just invest in all the machines, you increase the productiveness, right? You're doing more. But it's not directly, right? Advances in robotics does not do that directly, right? It's replacing labor because of supply and demand, right? If you don't need to be more productive, you're not, right? You just replace the human labor. But you can become, well, yeah, so I guess so, yeah. Productiveness hinges on other stuff. I wonder what the relevance of that is. Others, such as Autor, Levy, and Murnane, who were also considered by Frey and Osborne to build their hypotheses, mentioned that their model predicts that in industries and occupations that are initially intensive in labor, input of routine tasks will make relatively larger investments in computer capital as its price declines. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. These industries and occupations will reduce labor input of routine tasks for which computer capital substitutes and increase demand for non-routine task input which computer capital complements. Yeah, right. Higher skill work. Replacing lower skill work with higher skill work. This line of argumentation has already demonstrated that computerization affects routine tasks and less skilled jobs in all sectors of the economy by replacing human labor with automated processes. Exactly. Yeah. That's great stuff, isn't it? Boring low-skilled stuff. Yeah. However, at the same time, there's also need for computerization of non-routine tasks of higher skilled jobs. Yeah, the middle ground disappears, right? Yeah. Like I said about the web pages, right? You don't have to make a web page today to get a web page. Right, the two British economists verified that. So it's kind of an inflation, right, in skill. Yeah. The two British economists verified that with falling prices of computing, problem-solving skills are becoming relatively productive, explaining the substantial employment growth in occupations involving cognitive tasks where skilled labor has a comparative advantage, as well as the persistence increase in returns to education. Yeah, we become higher educated. And I like that. I like being higher educated. I like learning. I like knowing more stuff. Not everybody wants to do that, though. Right, based on data provided by the Occupational Information Network of the Ministry of Employment in the US, the ONET, Frey and Osborne worked on a database of job definitions for hundreds of occupations. Nice. Using this database, they carried out an analysis of the share of automatable tasks in more than 700 occupations and came up with the famed result. According to our estimate, 47% of total US employment is in the high-risk category, meaning that associated occupations are potentially automatable over some unspecified number of years, perhaps a decade or two. Didn't they say that it's already doable? It's just not cost effective. Maybe that's what they're talking about, right? Within a decade or two. Right, this was 2013, so that was almost a decade ago. That's interesting. Right. The results of the study were noteworthy for a number of reasons. The sheer magnitude of the potential for automation that Frey and Osborne identified for almost every second job in the US economy. The fact that according to their model and to their own surprise, the brunt of automation might fall upon service occupations that appear to be growth segments of the labor market in the recent past. Right. I'm not so sure about that. Right, okay, so this here, it's doable, but it won't be done. Right? For a lot of these places, service occupations, like take a sample going to a restaurant and getting served by a person, right? You get a personal waiter, right? I mean, I'm saying that will become, right? Maybe not in McDonald's, right? In McDonald's, you would want to replace the people, right? With cheaper machines. But in more high-end restaurants, right? When you go on a date or whatever, you want something more fancy. And maybe you could make fancy machinery and that type of thing. But like, we got the creativity of the servers and whatnot, and right, this is like a supply and demand thing, right? As long as the demand as long as the economy manages to keep people employed, that will keep the service industry, right? As long as I have a job, which I don't, but right, the more work I have to do, the less inclined I am to spend my time cooking food, right? The more inclined I am to be using using a restaurant for food, right? But I suppose if I'm low wage, which is the majority, right? I would tend to go to the cheaper places, and in those places, right, if I went to McDonald's, which I don't, but no, well, I could see myself doing that. A burger joint, right? Just fast food. Yeah, there we go, fast food. A lot of that is already replaced by machinery. and it can be continued to. Right? Dexterity jobs, right? Now, I mean, I would prefer that, right? Like that's kind of the McDonald's deal, right? It always tastes the same in wherever you go, right? You have a specific, right, rule set. There is no artistry, right? There is no culinary arts being done in McDonald's. So I would, but I would probably say that this is. I haven't read the article, but I can imagine that they might have just said like waiter and just said all the waiters. So maybe this number should be a little bit tinier. I can imagine that, right? Knock it down to 42% because that's the meaning of life. Alright, to move away from largely considering non-routine tasks as not automatable, thanks to the progress in the field of machine learning. Yeah, like designing, making a website, again. At the same time, the scope of their study was much more modest than many commentators led to believe. Frey and Osborne were quick to point out that the subject of their study was merely the susceptibility of jobs in the US economy to automate. Exactly. Susceptibility, right? It's doable. So let's leave it at 47%. It is doable. It doesn't say that it will be done. Right. I wonder if they did economical analysis. Probably, right? However, they also transferred their findings to other national economies that might present similar challenge, a similar challenge due to their differences in job profiles and the composition of labor market structures and institutions. Basically, they came to different results than the study for the United States. Wait. Basically, they come to different results than the study for the United States. Other countries? Wait. Yeah, different job markets have different numbers. That makes sense to me. All right. Furthermore, they explicitly kept the time horizon relatively open. See above? Yeah. And had to derive their results from existing literature on digitalization, which might be biased itself. Definitely, right. Yeah, they said a decade or two, right? It's difficult to... But I think that was a good idea, right? Because it's difficult, right? It could be 1 decade, it could be 4 decades. It's difficult to say, so they guess. Also, just because something can be done, right? Usually it takes change takes longer than one would guess. Right, to implement and purchase and for it to proliferate throughout society. You can do it fast, but yeah, just because something can be done doesn't necessarily mean it will be done. Usually change happens when you feel that you have to make the change, not that you want to, right? That's my assumption anyway, right? That replacing the McDonald's waiters is, right, it's not when it's economically viable, right? That's within the decade or two, but then you don't make that change immediately when it becomes economically viable, because it takes a lot of upfront costs, right? A lot of effort to implement the change. So you probably do it slowly, right? And it has to be, right? It's not like this economic benefit is not enough, right? It has to increase, and like sooner or later you will meet a threshold where it's like, oh, this is too big. We really have to replace the laborers, the people with machines, right? When that gap increases. All right. Most importantly, Frey and Osborne highlighted in their study that one would have to make a number of additional assumptions to derive prognoses of possible net job losses. Yeah, exactly, yeah. For instance, regarding the relative costs of automation in the future, influenced by the level of wages, labor supply, and the cost of capital equipment. Yeah, exactly. It's super difficult to predict these things. And I get what they're saying, right? We're predicting that these things can happen. If they will and when, well, as long as society, civilization does not collapse, that thing has got to be the trend, right? It has got to be the trend. Alright, technology will play a quantitative role in the labor market in terms of job substitution and complementarity. In addition, however, we think that there might be regulatory and political resistance to the substitution of jobs, not only by some neo-Luddite movements. Oh, nice. I did read a neo-Luddite manifesto. Notes towards a neo-Luddite manifesto. That's interesting. Alright. Resistance not only by that, but mainly by increasing regulations and safety measures that will provide the framework for the application of automated systems. Yeah, right. There's plenty of resistance. Right? The general consensus by politicians, which I think is a dumb consensus, but it is that we need to create jobs for people. Because we don't have... Right? If we substitute all these jobs, what should the people do? And so far, the politicians don't know, right? My argument that I'm very vocal about is universal basic income, right? Right? If we can make a society where people don't have to work, have jobs, isn't that... For me, that's a no-brainer that is the society I want to live in. So I want to work towards that society. Right, lastly, technological development might take longer than predicted and job profiles might adapt to meet the challenge of automation, especially with the complementary effect. Yeah, exactly. Like, we create new magic jobs that are pointless and useful, right? Not all of them are pointless, but we do create a lot of pointless jobs, and we create jobs that are not pointless. Right? Right? Before airplanes, there were no pilots. Right. But right. But before airplanes, there were no stewardess. Is that what it's called? But I think a lot of that is a little bit too much, right? A lot of that could be replaced by a machine, right? They have these microwaved meals, right? You can just have like a machine, like a vending machine on the plane. If you need to eat food, then you can choose yourself when you want to eat food. Right? You don't need all of these people to do it for you. And you don't need someone to go and get the shot of whiskey, that little bottle. They don't need to go and sell it to you. You can go to a vending machine and get it, right? And in many flights, right, if it's just like a 4-hour flight, you don't need that at all, right? You can eat before and after. You can just adapt to the flight. Right. One could add that a massive increase in consumption could easily lead to an expansion of employment despite rising productivity levels, although this might not be ecological feasible. Yeah, that is one thing, right? That's... Oh, actually, I've been looking for arguments against universal basic income. This is an argument. This is a possible negative consequence of UBI, right? Increasing purchasing power might increase the number of electricity and coal being burned, right? That might be a thing that happens if we do a good job implementing UBI. right? If it works as people hope it will work, I don't think it will. I think it will be a hit on the economy, right? UBI would be a hit and lower the general productivity levels of a place. But it could increase, right? Because of the increase in purchasing power. But that's maybe it's not an argument against, it's just speculation, right? It is also expected that higher qualifications for non-routine tasks in automation environments are not available in abundance in any society and are difficult to find due to inefficiencies in the education and training systems, demographic changes, and profit-oriented organization cultures. Oh, right, that it will take longer. Right. I mean, these things, these competencies are like, it might take longer than people expect, right? To make those societal changes to get more people into that type of education. And maybe people are not just interested in programming. Programming is a big fucking deal and not everybody enjoys it, yeah. However, we do have interesting stuff like the GPT-3 AI. I'm looking forward to that. It's like, or someone might be able to create an assistant programmer for the programmer, where a lot of the menial tasks within programming, which there are a lot of, right, can be automated. So we will see an increase in that as well. Maybe. With regards to the digital transformation of work, the study clearly contributes to triggering intensive national and international debates about the threat of technological unemployment and the future of work. Yeah. Right? That's... I argue that it's not... Yeah, it's social unemployment, right? The social, how society deals with unemployment, right? It's only a threat and a problem if we don't have anywhere to put all these unemployed people. UBI, again, right? That's a social issue, not a technological issue, right? It becomes an issue, right, if a lot of people gets unemployed and they don't get any money, because if they don't get any money, and that's where the crux is, right, purchasing power. What if they can't get hold of food and shelter? Well, then you're looking at possible riots, right? It's possible riots. All right. Technical progress and the transformation of work in various sectors in the last decades have been intensively investigated. However, who has investigated it? Right. However, what seemed particularly threatening is that not just manufacturing workers seem to be at risk of being substituted, but also a large number of white-collar jobs. Thus, according to Frey and Osborne, even jobs in the service sector, such as budget analyst, have a 94% probability of automation. Yeah, I can see that. In view of the enormous number of jobs in the service sector today, this prognosis has raised many existential questions about the future development of societies, since much of these jobs seem to be technologically feasible. All right, we're talking about office work here. I was just thinking, when they were talking about the service sector, I was thinking about restaurants, but the office jobs, that is a high... Right? A lot of people are working in offices today, or at home, right? But they have an office at home. Alright, Frey and Osborne stated that 47% of jobs in the US featured a probability of more than 70% being potentially automatable over some unspecified number of years, perhaps a decade or two. Alright, 70% of these 47, so it's down to 42 then. Not quite, it's lower than that, but other scholars are more cautious when evaluating the societal effect of such results. For example, Arntz et al. Refers that they estimate the automobility for 21 OECD countries following a task-based rather than an occupation-based approach. Countries following a task-based rather than an occupation-based approach. Yeah, I do like that. A task-based. That's what I hope for. Yeah, you do a project, right? You do this project and then you're done.
Oh, it's down there somewhere. Let me take another look.
Like maybe you spend 3 months working on a project and then the rest of the year you do nothing. Right? That's utopian looking stuff. But you get my point, right? That would be great. You spend, a few months working and then a few months off and doing personal projects, right? You still do projects and stuff, but you do whatever you want. What you want to work on. Education or just whatever, just playing video games, right? What else does people want to do? You can paint, you can dance. Yeah. For this, we use data on actual workplace tasks as recently surveyed in the IACC databases for OECD countries. Overall, our figures suggest that 9% of OECD jobs are potentially automatable. Moreover, we found that in US only 9% of jobs, rather than 47%, as proposed of Frey and Osborne, face a high automatability. The threat from technological advances thus seems much less pronounced compared to studies following an occupation-based approach. Wait. Alright, so not all tasks within an occupation is automatable, is that what they're saying? So that's why the number is weird? I'm curious in how they mean. What's the difference between a task-based approach? Maybe I was misunderstanding what they mean. Instead of looking at job descriptions, they're looking at what are people actually doing. That seems like a lot of work. A lot of work to look at all the tasks that are being done. Right, when applying Frey and Osborne's methodology to Germany, Karsten Bresky and Inga Burke similarly concluded that 59 jobs in Germany might be at risk. Alright. A study by the Leibniz Center for European Economic Research in Mannheim on behalf of Federal Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, BMAS, attempted to apply the methodology of Frey and Osborne to Germany and reduced this figure slightly to 42%. Nice. Several other studies provide figures in the same range. For example, A Future That Works, Automation, Employment and Productivity by McKinsey. The McKinsey Global Institute concluded that around 45% to 47% of work activities can be automated by adapting currently demonstrated technologies. Yep. Manyika. Alright. And 2 studies by the Institute of Employment Research, a special research office of the German Federal Employment Agency, suggested a potential of substitution around 40%. The same McKinsey methodology was developed for the Portuguese case, and the conclusions were as well very similar. Right. Actually, something that I'm very curious about now when reading this, or something that a study to do, is a study on pointless jobs, right? Define what that means and do, right? You can use the work of these, right? They have built databases, right? of occupations, jobs, right? There are databases where with descriptions that you can use, but you can divide them into groups then, right? How many of these can be considered useless? I mean, that's a strong word, but you get my point, right? Like for the Coca-Cola, like how many people are working on making Coca-Cola ads, commercials? That's very interesting work to be done, maybe. Actually, I want to remember that. Should I just write it down on my to-do list? I'm just gonna write that down. Give me a moment. I want to see if the study has been made or if someone has done a study like that. I want to search for it. Alright, so study on pointless jobs similar to, what was this? They are writing about the, not the Mackenzie methodology. Alright, Frey and Osborne. Frey and Osborne. That's a very interesting way to look at. Alright. In other words, the potential job substitution effect will not be that dramatic, since most jobs and occupations consist by definition of a combination of routine and non-routine tasks. Good point. Yeah. Right, the entire job does not disappear. That's similar arguments to what I made before, right? Not all waiters will disappear. In just the same way, not all office work will disappear, right? It's just some of the tasks that they are doing, while a lot of the non-routine tasks will not be automated. So, right, there is a percentage, right, of, what was it, the budget analyst, right? There's a percentage of the budget analyst tasks that disappear. So the 47 number is way too big. That's a good point, yeah. According to Arntz et al., some traditional occupations in the manufacturing sector, the financial sector, banking, insurance, or other service sectors, legal, accounting, include typical non-routine tasks, even though most of their tasks are routinized. Routinized? Exactly, right. Most of their tasks. So how many are being replaced then? Half of them? Over the last years, many studies have been published in numerous countries on the impacts of technological development on work and employment. But I want to point out, right, that the goal, right, that I have, right, society as politics at the moment does not have a goal to replace these tasks ASAP. Right? I was talking about that gap before, right? It's when they feel they have to automate them, that's when it happens. And politically speaking, we're pushing this boundary even further, right? Save the jobs and whatnot. I want to see a flip, a social flip on that, where we want to push it this way. Yeah, automate ASAP. When we have somewhere to put all the unemployed people. And by that also removing the stigma of being unemployed, right? Being unemployed can be hugely beneficial for society and yourself. Like you just do work that doesn't get money, right? I don't know, like parenting, cleaning your own house, doing chores, instead of paying people to do it, right? Cooking your own food. Right, the studies revealed significant differences between the institutional framework conditions of employment in these countries, which in turn lead to different results. Right, in Germany, for example, new demands for qualification skill and skills are usually quickly covered by its vocational training system, which offers to a great extent the adaptability of human qualifications and skills to technical progress. Yeah. That happens, but to a point, right? Like, I heard someone make that argument. They said, well, should you teach all the lorry drivers, the truck drivers, and make them into high-skilled programmers? I don't think so, right? You can't, to be a high-skilled programmer, you need aptitude and interest, right? I have interest in programming. I'm self-taught. I'm not a programmer by any stretch of the imagination, but I've spent a lot of time practicing this stuff and learning it by myself. And I have a little bit of aptitude, but more interest than that. And that, right, I don't think that would be for everybody, right? Especially if we take the more simple and menial task and automate them, and the high-level difficult stuff in programming, right? I mean, anybody can learn it, but you need interest and aptitude, and I'm sure, like, all these people will not have interest and aptitude to do that. They could learn it, but will they? And should it be forced upon someone to learn all that stuff? That would, right. Learning all that programming, if you have zero interest in it, that would suck. Oh man, that would be years of suckage. And just hating your life, and then what, you're supposed to spend the rest of your life working with this stuff when you hate it? I don't see that as a... Sure, this is great to have a good vocational training system, but also, right, we need to look at the well-being of the people, right? Right. However, it is almost impossible to make a general assessment of the current state of research on automation, since the individual studies did not apply the same methodologies, worked with different data, and dealt with a variety of research questions. Good point, yeah. As to the future of automation, we can distinguish two lines of inquiry. On one hand, there are studies that explore the technological potentials available today or in the near future. On the other hand, there are studies that try to predict actual future job losses. Yeah, of course. Right, that was the one that they're talking about, right? The Frey and whatever, right? They were looking at technological potentials. Actual future job losses, that is difficult to predict, yeah. Right, these two lines of inquiry can be easily confused. They nonetheless represent a crucial distinction. Yeah, agreed. As discussed above, there are a number of reasons why increased automation cannot simply be equated with aggregate job losses. Yeah, not equated, but you can imply and assume, right, that increased automation will lead to job losses. It's just not... You cannot predict actual or future job losses. You can just say this is just... We can replace these jobs. Right? Yeah, the one leads into the other, right? You need to have good methodologies and good structure on what jobs can be. You can use the data from those studies to actually try and predict future job losses, right? It's difficult to speculate on how future technology will develop, though. But yeah, all right. Reading the simplified statement. every second worker in today's economy could be substituted by robots and AI, as we will soon have a rate of 50% technological unemployment, implies that there will be no countervailing job creation at all, an assumption that is highly improbable. Yes. Yeah. This number is way too high, right? These two are very, very different. I agree with that. Alright. Well, hello, Notrunner. Notrunner says, hi, I'm new. What's this stream about? I'm reading about technological advancement and, yeah, jobs. Yeah, right. What is it called again? Give me a second. Let me get it. Oh, wait. Technology as enabler of the automation of work and sociology consequences. They're looking to what will the future hold. How are you doing today, Nodrunner? It's nice to see you again. Have your sleeping schedule been messed up? Right. Even if the substitution of human labor were technologically feasible, there is no automatism that would by itself ensure that this automation actually takes place. I agree, yeah. In fact, the introduction of automation technologies depends on several additional variables. Actually, I can summarize the text so far. It's pretty much nothing new for you, I guess. It's just pointing out that a lot of jobs can be automated away. And they're pointing out just because they can, they won't necessarily will. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole article so far. In a nutshell. Not says, I'm doing good, just got done playing Minecraft with friends. Oh, nice. I woke up at like 5 p.m. That's something, I guess. Hope you had a good time. What were you building in Minecraft? Alright. Right, in fact, the introduction of automation technologies depend on several additional variables, the relative costs of automation playing a central role. Oh, I thought they did that because they were talking about another study, and I thought they did look at the relative costs. I was talking about that thing, right? Right, we have the cost of a person doing a job right here, and then we have a cost for buying a machine doing that same job. If they're equal, people will not buy the machine, right? Because of a variety of reasons, right? It's the upfront cost of a machine, for example, and just social and political reasons and whatever, right? So when will they start getting replaced is when the machine goes lower, but this is not enough, and lower and lower and lower, and at some point it's not economically feasible to keep paying for the laborer, right? Yeah. I thought they were taking that into account in these studies, but if they have not, then it's gonna take a lot of time. This 47% of possible jobs, actually 42, let's call it 42% of possible job tasks that might get automated. It's gonna take a while. It is gonna happen if civilization don't collapse. That's my beliefs, but it's gonna take a while. Yeah. Northerner says, we built a house, a very modern looking. Nice. Lots of marble and glass. Nice. A water feature out front. Feature? A moat? What's that? Fountain. Combination. Right, if the cost of automation if the costs of automation technologies far exceed the amount of wages that can be saved by their introduction, this introduction is likely to be slow throughout the economy. Indeed, that's just what what I just said, yeah. Moreover, a growing political opposition to automation technologies could also slow down their introduction. For instance, through legislation, strong union opposition, or worker militancy. Yeah. I hate that. I want to see a political movement in the opposite direction. Yeah. Definitely in the opposite direction. And all these boring jobs, let's just have machine do them. The remarkable merit of the study by Frey and Osborne has again motivated the classic question of the interrelation between automation, processes and job losses. The overall point of their state of research could then be summarized as follows. Scientists agree that there is a great potential for an automation of work, with almost 1 in 2 tasks undertaken in today's economy becoming replaceable in the next 1 or 2 decades. It is possible, yeah. What is this? Not says, I was working on a Mindtest standalone game some time ago, and I created some artwork for the in-game texture, and I wanted to get your feedback on the art style. Oh. Alright, let's look at this. It looks like Minecraft. It's just prettier colors. Actually, when I look at this, I think Minecraft, but prettier. That's my immediate response. I don't know if that's feedback or whatnot. Yeah, it feels like Minecraft, but prettier. I suppose it would be... right, creating a few variations, right? Because you see the patterns, right? You see the pattern right here. I suppose you could spin them around. Do that in the programming. Yeah, spin them around and maybe a few more. It would be interesting to see what it looked like that, right? When you have a few variations in the thing. It's difficult to say from this image, but... Oh. I don't know. I don't have a lot of aesthetic ability, so I don't know what improvements could be made other than just flipping them around. I don't know. Nodono says, it looks like pixel art, right? But if you look closer, it is actually based on triangles instead. Oh, right. Right. Yeah. What happens if you embrace the triangleness of this thing? Of the... I mean, I guess pixel art in 3D stuff is based on triangles as well. Right? I'm assuming that the Minecraft textures are the same, right? Every square is 2 triangles put together. Up here we've got some coal. Maybe it's supposed to look like pixel art, though. Not honest, I always just think of ways to make the graphics look more unique. It does, yeah. I like these little things. Like small patterns. They look prettier here than here for some reason. And you could probably make variations on that as well. Yeah, but in general, the art style, I like it. I like it. I mean, I kind of like Minecraft's art style as well. This looks... like you say, right? You have flipped, right? All these, so they look like diamonds? I don't know. Right? But they are all flipped, and that's definitely unique looking. It's subtle and unique looking. But what I definitely like is that it looks crisper. If that's an artistic word, it looks more crisp than Minecraft. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's just something I got from this. Note owner says, there's a program on Steam called Marmoset Hexels that let you draw with triangles instead of pixels. Oh, nice. Very nice. All right. Where was I? So I hope that was kind of the feedback you were hoping for. It didn't feel very helpful. Right. Furthermore, technology has proven not to undermine total employment in the past, and the economic opportunities afforded by the technological processes could ensure that employment remains roughly the same while productivity increases. Yeah, and I'm an opponent to this, right? Because most of these jobs, right, I want to see a decrease in jobs. I want to see automation undermining employment. I would prefer that over increased in productivity. Yeah. Despite the methodological criticism of the study with regards to its specific design and its comparability with other countries, its outstanding response in scientific and political community seems remarkable. It shows that current actual technological progress raises fears, doubts, and hopes about the future working conditions in highly industrialized societies. Does indeed. Note owner says, I just like to play with things and get feedback. It might show up again somewhere or it might not. Nice, yeah. I like to give feedback. Yeah, that's like pretty much most of what I do in this part of the stream, right? I just look at something and I give hot takes. Yeah. Armchair philosophy. Armchair artist. What is that? Not criticism. Art appreciator. Yeah, I am an armchair everything. I can give my opinion on all the stuff. Note owner says that a triangular style looks retro, but it actually requires a high pixel count. Oh, right. To make it look square. Yeah, you need... I get it. Maybe that is why it looks more crisp, because it's a higher pixel count. I suppose that would be a thing, right? Something to note then, because of that higher pixel count, the grass kind of looks like it's sticking out a little bit. Right. But that is enough reading for today. I'll continue reading this tomorrow. I like this essay. It's exciting. No more reading.